Hi, it's Mark Perera here from DPW, live in Amsterdam, and I'm blessed to have Michael DeWitt here from Walmart talking about both his journey as a CPO, but also talking about some of the changes in terms of technology and particularly in AI. So, Michael, welcome to the conference. What's your first experience of the day?
Thanks, Mark. Well, I haven't had breakfast yet, so that's still trying to get warmed up to the day, but I have had a couple cups of coffee, so
Keep you going, I'm
so
sure.
far so
We'll
good.
fuel that with it as well. But before we start, the team had kind of briefed me in some of your background. So you're not straight coming in from a corporate world into the world of procurement. You've come from a more military background.
Well, that was where I started in the Air Force. That was a long time ago. I've been in procurement for quite a few years now.
And any of the attributes from the military service that come into procurement into a positive way?
That's an interesting question. I think so, actually. I mean, a discipline that I learned in the military is good for best practice approach in procurement. I think it probably applied a little bit more when I was in industries like medical device rather than retail because it's more serious.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's. I think I brought some things from there.
Excellent, excellent. And what's your role at Walmart now? You're looking after the kind of center of excellence around the procurement function.
Yeah, I lead procurement, indirect procurement for Walmart International, so everything outside the US.
Oh, wow.
And I also have a global center of excellence, and under that is our technology enablement team, or our digital transformation team, as we call it. And actually, that's for all of Walmart because we're supporting the US as well from a procurement tech standpoint.
Wow. And how big's the team and the reporting line you have?
Total direct and indirect, because in the markets they report indirectly to me, but then
Yeah.
I have my own team sitting in Bentonville. It's about 200 plus.
So the technology side obviously is a key part of the role, and I guess that's constantly evolving. And with Walmart and the consumer side, it's I guess it's in the essence of the organization. How do you look at the technology, I guess, current stack and the future stack? And I guess part of being here today is to look at some of the exciting new tech coming through.
Yeah, for sure. So first, I'll just say that procurement, it's something I've been waiting for. Being a procurement guy for the last 20 years, I've been hearing, this technology's coming. Never really came until the last few years. So I feel a bit rejuvenated now that, all these AI technologies for procurement are here. It is exciting. And I'd say we started our journey probably about 4 years ago, starting with AI negotiations with Pactum. And since then we've really done a lot of analysis on. I mean, there's so many companies out here, right? And I think there's probably not going to be nearly as many in the next few years. So we're really trying to look at a combination of things when we're looking at our future tech stack, which is the technology itself, but also how broad it covers, because we don't want to end up with 20 different solutions, right?
I guess
That
that's
just address a really small part of the process.
I guess that's the risk, isn't it? You have multiple co-pilots across the function.
Yeah, that's right.
And point solutions. Just on Pactum, for those who don't know, this is looking at automating the negotiation process.
Right. Negotiating with a bot.
With a bot.
Yeah.
This must be interesting for your suppliers. How did they first react when you took that up?
That was actually our biggest concern about it, is what will the suppliers think, because we already may have a reputation of being too hard on our suppliers. So we were worried about that, but they really like it. In fact, over 80% of the survey, the suppliers that we surveyed, said that they'd rather negotiate with a bot than a human. So,
Well, I know.
which I don't know what that says about us, but yeah, that it really, our concerns were not founded. They like negotiating with the bot. So.
And that's embedded in the business and just a core part of the way you do it?
Well, I would say, I don't know about embedded, because when you do Pactum, it's more of a campaign. So you pick one area, one scope, you pick a set of suppliers, and then you launch it, and then you get the results back, and then you look for your next one. So it's not, you don't set it up once and then it just keeps going. You set it up, you find new areas of spend to do it. But we've done a lot. It's basically one after another, and it's well received by our business stakeholders.
And when you look at the AI landscape, I guess you can look at all the different parts of the operating model. Are there particular areas that you're now kind of focusing on?
Yeah, I mean, one of the big buzzwords now is orchestration, and we are looking at that. We're trying to actually, looking ahead. We want to get away from big implementations, right? I won't mention specific company names, but we think we can be away from some of those companies in a few years with the roadmap or the technologies that are coming through. I think a combination of orchestration along with some other what we call engines. We'll still need an RFP engine. We still look at things like category strategy development, but that orchestration layer is going to sit on top. It's going to find the right information inside of Walmart and outside of Walmart, and it's going to give us whatever we want. So it'll be that co-pilot where we ask it, hey, find us our contracts that are coming up due in 60 days, and it'll give you the information. It'll tell us our supplier spend information. So basically, you're just interacting with this, UI, and it's just telling you the information that you need just by asking it.
It's a fascinating category, and I wish I'd listened to the feedback from CPOs and their customers for the years in the past, and maybe gone down that route myself, because it's the simplicity of kind of removing the clunky interfaces that we've had and the multiple ones.
Yeah.
But again, it's making the right choices on these. It's I think we've had most of the providers here, so it's going to be interesting to see how many companies take away kind of further requirements and explore it in the future as well. You talked about the category strategy side as well. Have you looked at how AI might look at kind of supplier market strategy and category strategy as well?
Yeah, we've been using an AI category strategy tech for about 3 years now,
Oh, wow.
and it's gone really well. I mean, we love it. And again, it has that co-pilot where it asks questions to the sourcing professional and draws from the information that we have both internally and in the market, and it helps us to speed up our development of category strategies. In fact, it's reduced it by about half of what it used to take our people to do category strategies. So, and they're better.
And the team embracing it? There's no pushback, or is there a little bit of change management involved?
A little bit of change management. I mean, to get them away from spreadsheets and other documents, but you do have to really go all in. You can't just dip your toe in it. So we launched it. We set KPIs. We track results, and it's not official we don't count it as a category strategy unless it's in this technology. So they get a 0 if they don't have it in the technology. So that helps as well.
And any other areas that you've kind of looked at? And I guess some of these, a lot of the companies here and I'm seeing it, some of the agreements we have are no longer SaaS agreements, they're AI agreements. Are there things that you've had to change as you brought more AI companies into Walmart in terms of onboarding them, but also implementing?
Yeah, onboarding's been interesting. Working with our tech team with all these new AI techs, we have a process that takes some time to get through, especially with AI technologies. So that does have an effect of how quickly we can move. But the tech team has also been very supportive, and we've been very open about what we're looking at doing. I think one good thing is that they're not really focused on this space. They have so much other things to do that they're fine with us going out and looking for AI technology. So they've been supportive. But yeah, we've been able to, despite that, we've been able to move pretty quickly. And to answer your first question, I'd say, we've piloted other things. So, for example, contract redlining. So automatic redlining, where a supplier will send in a contract and it'll redline it and send it right back without humans being involved. Our legal team loves that. In fact, they tell us that reduced their time by 80% for doing redline. So that was very helpful. That one's an interesting one, though, because we really need legal to play a big part in that, and they haven't really, even though they love it, haven't made it a priority. So we haven't really, pushed that as well. But other areas we're looking at still contract lifecycle management. So that's the redlining aspect. But of course, you have a broader, creation of contract process, plus then drawing that information from the contracts. We're looking at technologies to do those as well.
Yeah, the obligations and the performance management against them. Yeah, the full cycle. Well, I think we had the electronic signatures, which I'd probably say in the last 20 years is probably the biggest change that we've had in the procurement world, because it's a triple win for suppliers, procurement, and the business of speed. So if we can get the redlining and the other parts of the contract management, we can start engaging with those suppliers early.
Yeah, for sure.
So the theme of the event is 10x, as you know, kind of exponential thinking. As we start looking at 2030, which is scarily only 5 years away, the decade's going quickly, where do you see AI kind of in the operating model of procurement, but also in Walmart as well?
Yeah, I think, again, going back to this co-pilot concept where, you'll have one UI that really you interact with that will walk you through the whole process, and it'll draw from other technologies, other, data inside and external to the company, but it's going to make the process so much easier. And it's interesting too, because then I think if it's so easy, and you just have to ask it questions, do you really need to know a lot about procurement? So we're thinking a lot about, the what kind of people are we going to need in the future, and how is this going to affect our headcount and our experience and our, who we're looking for from a hiring standpoint. So I think that's going to change dramatically as well.
Yeah, I was having dinner with some CPOs last night, and we were talking about how you recruit people now. Are you recruiting people into procurement function for their background or their willingness to use AI to augment themselves in the role?
Yeah.
And it may be more towards the latter when you do. But also, we've got some big challenges we're trying to solve with procurement. We've got the whole sustainability piece and getting to net zero. So hopefully some of the automation, augmentation will allow our very clever people to solve other problems as well.
Yeah. Yeah, we've already started hiring non-procurement people to look at our technology, and I think there's pros and cons there, but I think that'll continue to evolve.
Yeah, I guess I'm not sure. Maybe I need to make a prediction of 2030, but the parts of the co-pilots, the operating model may be more generalist, and co-pilots that really specialize in those particular functions is probably where we're looking at. Do you have any prompt engineers, but like looking probably more at the chat GTP and exploring how you can look at your own data sets and so forth?
We do, yeah. We're starting to invest more in that, because up to this point, and still a lot of the technologies, when we say AI, are more machine learning, right? But we're starting to now expand into Gen AI, and that changes things also. And so, yes, we are looking at prompt engineering and how do we make sure we're asking the right questions to get the right information out of it. That's another evolution, I guess, as we move forward.
Yeah, and the speed is, of these models coming out. It's, the iPhone's looking a little bit boring every year. There's small tweaks, but the AI models are transforming within 6-12 months.
Yeah.
Do you start thinking about that in the strategy? Because normally you would have maybe a decade to look at a big transformation, and now we're seeing maybe 2 years, the same sort of transformation in the AI models, and potentially where both solution providers are making bets, but also the likes of Microsoft and OpenAI as well. Is that somewhere in the mindset, both from the procurement side or maybe even from Walmart as a whole? Because I guess it's touching every function.
You mean from a Gen A, looking at Gen AI specifically? Yeah, that's another interesting one, because I know Walmart has its own Gen AI, that we developed internally, and they want us to use that, but it's not really specific for procurement. So, these other technologies, it's set up already specifically for procurement, getting the right data, plugging into the right data. Data, of course, is a huge part of that, right? So that's another thing we need to figure out, is let's make sure we have our data, because whatever we're talking about, Gen AI or machine learning, it needs to plug into the right data. We're trying to figure that whole thing out.
And I think it's an interesting theme around the data. We're quite often reliant on the ERP as our kind of master data record of these things. And as the space changes, is whether it's going to be sitting in there or another record's going to be in there as well.
Yeah.
What's your recommendation for a procurement function looking to make their first step of using AI or starting to transform their technology stack. Again, you're a very large organization with a lot more resources, but there'll be a few who've just got one suite provider in there.
Yeah.
And if we look at all the spider graphs and maps, there's just a huge amount of kind of point solutions they could go after. Have you got any guidance that you could share?
Yeah. It can be overwhelming when you look at all the technologies, and a lot of times it's people end up doing nothing because they don't know which one to use or where to jump in. I would say just pick something and try it out. I mean, that's how we did it. And I also tell you, there's nobody really that knows much about what's happening that are going to be really helpful to talk to. So if you talk to other companies, yes, there may be some companies like Walmart that have tried some things, but everybody has different needs, right? So you can't really depend on others to teach you specifically where to start or how to start. We just started by doing pilots. We looked at interesting technologies. We also look at the vision and the strategy and the roadmap of those technologies, which is important. We look at the leadership of those companies to make sure that they know what they're talking about. A lot of these companies are tech companies and they don't know a lot about procurement. That worries us a little bit. Others are procurement companies that have figured out technology on how to do procurement. So we like those companies more. So we look at all those elements when we're trying to figure out who to pilot or who to test with, but just jump in and do it. And we picked small areas, we piloted, we got success, and then of course, you spread it from there. But yeah, you just have to jump in because you're already behind, really, if you haven't done anything yet, I'd say.
And it sounds like you're kind of working like a VC. I mean, you're talking about, what's the vision of the company, how they're funded, the leadership team. You're bringing in quite a lot of VC backing because you're a first customer or taking them on and maybe a first customer or a third and fourth rather than a 100th one in some of these companies as well.
Yeah, that's true. Most of the companies we've worked with so far, we're customer number one.
All right.
So that's also advantageous, of course, because we help to guide where they're going from a technology standpoint. So that's the other advantage for jumping in quickly with some of these startup companies. And there's so even here now, this year, because I was here last year, but I think there's, I don't know, at least 40 new startup companies from what I understand here that weren't here last year. So still a lot of opportunity to jump in with somebody brand new and to help guide where they're going, that would be more aligned with the needs of your own organization.
So I guess if you are working and you're first customer or in the first 10 customers, you also need to put enough time in there to work with them, but also get the right mindset of not saying it needs a blue button here or a red one there, but kind of get into what your unmet needs or the problems that need to be solved.
Yeah, more strategic for sure. Yeah.
Interesting. And do you take a position where you're an early adopter on some technologies and a fast follower on others?
I think we're more in the mindset of early adopter, across the board now. We're not worried about, whether others have tested it or whether it's been successful. We're just looking at, and we've been pioneers in, several areas already. So I think we're continuing that to try to just look for what's emerging, what's this going to mean for the future? How does this come together for our tech stack in the future? And we have a vision of, we think, what that's going to look like in the future, which, again, I go back to this kind of orchestration or co-pilot that sits on top. And then we have some key technologies that actually build the information underneath that it draws from, that together with data internally and externally. And we have a nice SaaS, set of technologies that are low code, no code, that we can, if needed, plug and play in the future. So very low implementation.
And I guess as we move with the APIs and the orchestration layer, that knowledge of your data is all important because it could be distributed in multiple systems and you're trying to bring it together in there. So I guess you have teams who are looking at the kind of the architecture of your data across the multiple ones.
We do, yeah. That's another thing I'd say is, everybody's data is terrible. So that's another thing that shouldn't hold you back from, trying these technologies, because you can figure out how to get through it, get around it. So don't let that be a dependency on whether you start or don't start with a technology as data. It's a mess. I mean, and it'll continue to get better over time. And I think, using these technologies actually expedites that. It makes it, kind of forces you to get your data better. And it's going to be a continuous journey. I don't see it becoming perfect anytime soon.
And for a smaller organization where we've got a procurement leadership team, maybe a couple of kind of core technologies in there, how would you recommend they start moving to a center of excellence or a role that looks at the technology and the data stack? What would your advice to be for a smaller organization?
I think it's really important. I mean, in a way, I feel like we act like a small organization, even though, of course, we're not. But in Walmart International, we have 18 countries that we do business with, and each one of those countries is a small company within our company, right? Some of them smaller than others. Chile, for example, is one of our small markets. So that's where we test and pilot some of these technologies. So I think it's not probably dissimilar from, a small company, but put somebody in that role probably close to 5 years ago that just looked at technologies and analyzed them, helped us find the right ones, implement them, and then make sure we're using them efficiently and effectively. And I think that's been probably one of my better decisions since I've been with Walmart, is picking that person that specifically and exclusively is looking at these AI technologies. That's really helped us be successful.
I guess that's one area we do need the deep expertise as we change the operating model. Fascinating. What's that role called? Is it got a fancy AI name or?
Not real. I mean, it's digital transformation.
Okay.
But it's funny because when I brought it in, I mean, it was in the early days, I'd say, of the AI tech, and we didn't really know what it was going to do. Or I found the right person that was open to figure it out with me. But I guess that's important as well. Is you can't have somebody that wants a clear definition of what their role is going to be and how it's going to evolve. I mean, that's just not possible. You need somebody that's adventurous and willing to take on new challenges, opportunities.
They come from a tech background or a procurement background?
Yeah, it was kind of a combination of both. I'm not sure it matters.
Yeah.
Either way. I mean,
driven and passionate about learning.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And as you look at, we talked about kind of the technology landscape, orchestration and intake is another piece. Are there, as you look at 2030 and beyond, and you look at the procurement function, and I guess you're going to help deliver that new operating model, exciting things that you're looking at, challenging things that you're looking at that the businesses need to solve as well?
Yeah, I don't know if there's anything new or different. I mean, I feel like, again, I've been in procurement for a long time, and it really hasn't changed. I mean, what we do and the challenges that we face haven't really changed or evolved. I mean, I think these technologies are helping us to do them better. But yeah, I don't know that there's any new challenges or different challenges that I'm seeing in the future versus what we've seen before. It's still, I think, all about having the right processes, best practices first. I mean, that's important, right? Because these technologies like category strategy development, for example, we're using an AI tech there. We had a strong process in place first,
right? Okay,
before we brought the technology on. I think it's difficult to bring a technology on without people understanding the process or knowing why that process is important. So I think that's key. Is you have to have best practice process, and then you find the technology to enable that process, right?
Clicking on the switch of the app is not going to solve the problem.
That's right. Yeah, because then nobody knows. They don't understand why it should be used or how it should be used. So it's not very helpful.
Interesting. And I'm sure you've seen the logos. Any particular categories of technology that you're looking at other than the procurement orchestration layer?
Yeah, I mean, CLM's still one that we're trying to figure out. That's still a mess for us. It's done differently. Some have processes, some don't. Some have technology, some don't. across Walmart. So that's definitely one we still need to figure out. And there's some exciting, again, new techs, in this space. I would say other than that, we are looking at what I'd call autonomous sourcing, which is a little bit different than the one I mentioned before, which was Pactum, because Pactum is, we call it campaigns, right? So you pick a space, you set it up, you launch it, then you pick the next space. Autonomous sourcing, there's tech that you set it up once in certain areas, usually your smaller spend areas, and then it just goes and negotiates automatically. So when you have a need, it'll go out, get 3 bids for you with qualified suppliers, and it'll automatically do it by taking humans out of the loop. So
that'd be fascinating. I know there's at least 1 or 2 that's been around for a few years, and quite a few more coming in there.
Yeah.
And I think they're very open about where the machine learning is on these, and how much automation they're going. But they're going into more complex categories as well. So
that's right.
I probably need a bit of a refresh on that as well. We're going to have to wrap up soon, but one piece of advice on running a POC. So you've obviously you've kind of nailed that down, and it's a key part of anyone taking the kind of new technologies in to test them. Anything you would look at as setting up a proof of concept that lines up for success, at least in that process? Doesn't mean you adopt the technology, but at least test it in an effective way.
Yeah, I mean, a few things come to mind, but I'd say it's really important to find a willing participant. Find somebody that's excited in the business about this technology and it can be a champion, right? Because there are some people that are some individuals in leadership positions that are more interested than others. So if you find that right person, that really helps with a pilot. And then once it's successful, they'll help selling it. And there's nothing better than somebody outside of procurement selling something in procurement, right? Because others listen to those people more than maybe a procurement person.
Brilliant, brilliant. Well, Michael, thank you very much for your time. I hope you enjoy the rest of the day, and we'll hopefully see you in New York in June. So closer to you, so you don't have to do all the travels. And it'd be good to catch up with you at the end of the day or tomorrow, and just see the new technologies coming through, and some of those golden highlights as well. But thank you for your time, and that's us done for today, and we'll catch up soon.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you. Cheers.
Cheers.